what's going on? Aaron here, and I'll be teaching you guys about Java arrays and array lists. Alright, let's go. So first off, let's just start with the one-dimensional array. So an array is a data structure used to implement a list object where the elements in the list are the same type. Since an array is an object, you must use new when creating one. An array can be created with no set values and they may later be added. An array can also be created with set values. So over here, So over here you see we create an array, my num. It's initialized by either int or double or string, depending on what you want to make the array of. Brackets, the name of the array. New, once again the type of the array. And right here, the form between the two brackets is just showing how many elements I want inside of that array. Over here, I made a different array. This one's double, also the name of the array. Your num is the name of the array. So we also have these. These are I put in the values myself: 1.1, 2.2, 3.3, 4.4. Also, I set my num, the bracket is 0. So we're gonna get to this soon, but the number inside the brackets is the index of the array, and I set that equal to 100. So if we run this up, you see this for loop. If just prints, we'll get to this all later, but this is how you initialize the array. This is how it would work. And as you can see, I printed your num and then my num, so it shows them. We'll see 1.1 and then the 100, 2.2, and I'll get to why it printed out zeros. That's just to show you how we get started with them, how they store numbers. Alright. So the length of an array. The length can give you the number of elements in the array, with the first element being 1. The index of the array will give you the information stored in the spot of the element, and the first element in the array corresponds to 0. Arrays are objects, therefore their values can always be accessed and changed. So pretty much in this thing, in this slide, I'm telling you what the length of the array means. Over here, I have your num.length in this for loop. We're going to get to this soon. But your num.length just says how many characters, how many elements are in this array. That's about it, and it comes very in handy when keeping track of what element you're on in the array. Alright, next is traversing an array. In order to access or either mutate or replace/remove elements in an array, you must use a for loop which checks through every single index of the array. You may use a for each loop for only when you want to access every element, as will not work when you want to change the elements of the array. However, side note, you could use a for each loop alongside a mutator method, so you could achieve the same as a for loop, but it's just more work. So over here, let me show you how to use a for loop, how to use a for each loop first, since they're a little bit easier. So over here, I have int num, uint 8. Let me just run this for you guys. Alright, so we got a bunch of zeros. So since we only put the number of elements that we want, if you count over here, we get 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We get 8 zeros because there's 8 numbers corresponding to the 8. And since we never stated what those numbers will be, they just set automatically to 0 by Java. Now, so we're going to have a for each loop. So it's going to be for, and in parentheses, your parameter is going to be if it's either int, double, it corresponds to this, the same thing. We're going to name a random variable, just like a holder. Over here I named it temp var for temp variable. You're going to use a colon, and you set that equal to num. Num is the name of the array that we made. Now after you just put system out print ln temp var, you just print the variable. So now for the regular for loop, over here you can have for. You're also gonna have int. So for this, for the for loop, it doesn't correspond automatically to the array. It has a counter. Over here is I, our variable I, as you see it's all highlighted, is a counter. We're gonna start the counter at 0. That's gonna always be less than the number. So both of these have a number length of 4. See 1, 2, 3, 4, and over here just number 4. So it's going to be less than 4, and it's going to be I++. So we're going to be printing system.println the name of the array that you want to print, bracket, and I, since the number inside the bracket is going to correspond to which number inside the array that you want to print. And remember how this is a counter, it's going to start with 0, and it's going to print number element 0 in the array. And then it's going to go to 1 because it's I++, it gets added by 1, and it'll be your num inside the bracket 1, and it's going to print element 1 inside the array. So that's how it kind of works when you print it. Right here you see 1.1, and my num is 100 because you set the first one equal to 100, and then you see the 0 pop up again when you print my num again, and 2.2 is the second number, and your num, and so forth. Alright, array lists. An array list is an alternate way to store information as a list. You must import the array list since it is built into Java. An array list shrinks or grows as needed in the program, but an array has a set size. An array list is easier to print and it uses size and not length. So, let's look at an array list. So over here, this is what I meant by you must import it. Over here in the top and before the class, just import java.util.ArrayList. You're not necessary to know this for AP exam, but you need to use it whenever you're writing your code so it can work. So this is how you set it up. It's array list, and you have these two signs, right? And you put what type it is. You put integer, double, string, the name of this array list that you're making, new, because once again it is an object, array list, and then integer. It's the same thing, and parentheses. So over here I made an empty one. Thing with the array list, you can either add them right away or you can add them later on, which I'll show you. So the way that an array list works is that it's numbered from 0 to 1, from 0 to how many. This is the its length. It uses size instead of length, so it starts at 0 and not 1. So when you add 56, the element 0 is set to 56. When you add 69, element 1 is 69. Over here you can add that number to the specific spot. So you put the index, and then index, remember, starts from 0, and size starts from 1. So since it says index 1, that means the second number in the array. So it would pretty much, let me just run this for you guys. It would remove it will remove 69 and put in 1,000, and then it will remove 4, and then it will remove the index number 4 completely. So it would be what? It should be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we don't really know. I just remove number 4 and set 3. So remember 0, 1, 2, 3. So there is no 4th index. And yeah, that's how, that's pretty much how you use an array list. It keeps the also when you want to print it, you don't have to do your whole for loop shenanigans or for each loops. You can just put system.print and the name of the array list, and it's going to work, which is great for, this is why I kind of like it a little bit more, to be honest with you guys. Alright, so collections and generics. The correct syntax for an array list is as follows. So I showed you array list, signs, integer. Only integer objects may be stored in the list since I put integer in between the signs. Whatever is in between the two signs, the type parameter, that's what they're called, the array list must only contain elements of that type. So if I put like clowns in here, I can only put in clowns. That's the example that I've seen a lot. It's kind of, so that's how it really works. If I put integer here, I can only add integers. If I put double, I can only add doubles. That's just how an array list works. Alright, so auto-boxing is the automatic wrapping of primitive types in a wrapper class. Auto-unboxing is the automatic conversion of wrapper class to its corresponding primitive types. That's just telling you how the code pretty much works. An iterator. Iterator is an object whose only purpose is to traverse a collection of one element at a time. The iterator 2 must be imported. So now two-dimensional arrays. So 2D array. So a 2D array is just how I like to think of it, it's a matrix, pretty much. That's what it really is. So you have the first row, the row being across and column being down. So across first you have 100,000, then 2, 3, 4, 5. Next you have, and right under that you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And right under that you have 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. So over here, how to find how many columns are in it, you're gonna, pretty much you don't need to print, but you're gonna find the length of numbers being the name of the whole 2D array, at row 0. So remember how columns is from up and down, how many you have going, how many of going down, like, so if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers in one row, you know that you're gonna have 5 different columns. That's why you start with just the index 0 and it just counts how many there are for you. For the rows, you have the numbers and just the length. It'll just give you the length for it. So that's too bad. So how you print a double array is a little bit tricky. You can use a nested for loop, which I used right here. So two-dimensional array, also called a matrix, is a matrix of the arrays that consists of rows and columns. A two-dimensional array is simply a series of rows, which thus forms a matrix. Array.length returns the number of rows. Array.length I returns the number of columns. It's also an object, therefore it can be also modified. So the summary. So you must know the manipulation of one-dimensional arrays. Two-dimensional arrays and ArrayLists should be pretty easy. For loops can be used to traverse and manipulate, whereas for each loops can only be used to access each element. Must always keep watch the index elements in the array. So let's just go over some examples, kind of show you. So this is what the nested for loop I was talking about before. You start with the counter. Counter is always be less than the length. So this is also the counter. Remember the difference between arrays and ArrayList. This starts the length, it uses length, whereas list starts with size. So remember, this is an array, it's a 2D array, not a 2D array list, because they don't exist. That right. You start with 0 and 0. So if you want to print it complete, let me just print this for you guys. Alright, so over here, you look down right here, this right here is our array, our 2D array. Remember how I was talking about, it's just this array across, the next array right under it, the next array right under it. So you would see that this is a column, 2, 20, 200 is a column, 3, 30, 300, 4, 40, 400, and 5, 50, 500. Those are the columns, these are the rows. So the 100,000, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are the rows. So over here, first, I remember I printed the amount of columns, which is 5. After that, I printed how many rows, which is 1, 2, 3. So you print 3 rows. Alright, so for printing double array, you're going to use a nested for loop. You start with I is equal to 0, stays less than the length. You don't want to go past it. So you're pretty much printing the index of I being the row, and J being the column. Because remember, this number 0 means the column. This right here means the row. So you do a row. Row column is just the order you number the indexes in. Over here, I added like a little method to find which number is the max and where it is. So this is just pretty much finding where the max is and printing I and J, where it is, the max is, and it's located at which column and which row. So that's how you pretty much use it. Let's look at an example of using a method within the array. So over here, we're giving a random array, 17, -2, 0, 14, and 5. We're going to use like a little holder variable. That's going to help us make them in ascending order. So over here, you can see the use of for loop. You've used for loops a lot, like a crazy amount in this chapter. So you should know them pretty well. Over here is also the for each loop. So you see how you use the variable, just print it out, and it prints you all the numbers. But, this is a great thing too. You see how this right here makes it in ascending order. So since it's an object, it actually changes array num. So now when I want to print array num, it won't print the original array num. It's going to print the new changed array num that's in ascending order from least to greatest. So you guys should also know that. So it's just a counter. You have the array num j is less than, just seeing if the number right after is less than the number before. If it is, and you set that equal to the holder, and you print from the holder in there. So here's random array, just to show you guys how you can create these arrays. So it's really important to know how these arrays work. So this will be like the last example, then we'll get to the problems. So over here we create the array. Remember, int, brackets, random, new int. So the for loop, int I is equal to 0, I is less than random, the length of the random. Remember, the length over here is arrays happen in length is 10. We set the length equal to 10, I plus plus. So we're gonna have random, the bracket, the name of the array, random, bracket, the index, the counter, I. We're doing a math random method here. So it's pretty much just setting that index element to whatever random number, and we're just printing out that random I, as remember is happening in the for loop. And that's pretty much all you need to know for these arrays. Let's see what else you need to know. That's about it. Let's see if it's missed anything. So yeah, understand the difference between index and length. One starts in 0, one starts at 1. Alright, now let's just get to the questions here. So, question number 1. Which of the following correctly initializes an array ARR to contain 4 elements, each with a value of 0? So, let's see. This is correct, remember. Whatever integer, bracket, ARR, sets them all equal to 0. This one is also correct, because she said new int for this right here is pretty much the exact same thing, and it just uses a for loop to set every single array I index equal to 0. So the answer to this is E. They're all correct, yeah. Alright, next. Alright, 2. Which of the following program segment is intended to find the index of the first negative integer? The ArrayList. Alright. So this segment will work as intended. Alright, so you're using a while loop here. So as long as this index is greater than or equal to 0, you're just going to keep going. You're going to go to the next element in the array with I starting to 0. So if the location, so if this element, array I, is actually less than 0, it's going to leave this while loop and set location equal to I. So this will not always work, but it'll work when you only have one negative integer. So it's going to be C, because once you hit the first one, it's just going to end the whole loop and you're done. It's going to give you the location I. But if you have 2, it's going to skip the second one. It's not going to give the second one. So it works, but not really. Okay. Refer to the following code segments. You may assume that ARR is an array of int values. So let's see. It's 0 while the index is less than the array length. So you're going across the whole. Keep in mind that a length starts at 1, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, index starts at 0, so whatever is a 1 for the length is 0 for the index. So that's why whenever you want to put index, because you put the index inside the brackets, not the length. So index always starts at 0, and it's going to be always 1 less than the length. So that's why you always do less than and not less than or equal to. Because if it's equal to the array length, then you're going to get something that's not there, doesn't exist. So which of the following will be the result of executing the segment? result is a runtime error is going to occur. So when I has the value of like the array length -1, so pretty much like the last integer, or the last element, it's gonna increment to the array.length in a loop. So when you're adding sum plus equals array I, it uses array.length, which is out of range. Remember how I explained it, 0 and 1. So that's a problem. Alright, next. Refer to the following code segment. You may assume that the array1 contains elements. Alright, okay. So over here you have a counter, like a variable count. I using a for loop in this situation. So if array1, name of the array, index of I is not equal to 0, it's going to take the count, which is 0 at this point, and it's going to set I equal to that, and the count plus plus. So you have array2 is new in count. Alright. If array I contains the elements 0, 6, 0, 4, 0, 0, 2 in this order, what will array2 contain after execution of the code segment? So pretty much array2 is going to be left with 6, 4, and 2. So this whole entire code segment has the effect of removing all the zeros in the array. Because remember, if it's not equal to 0, then it's going to print it. But if it's equal to 0, this if loop doesn't work, and it goes to the next index. So it just skips over all the zeros. So the algorithm kind of copies that in array 1. So array 2 is just transferring whatever you have in array 1. So it's going to just skip all these zeros, and you're left with 6, 4, and 2. Alright, let's start this program segment. So for integer I is equal to 2, I mean not integer, yeah, integer I less than or equal to k, I plus plus. If it's less than some value, you're going to print out small. What is the maximum number of times that small can be printed? Alright, so this is also one of these where you need to know the difference between your index and your length, right? The point of the index, remember index starting at 0. So if I starts at 2 automatically, and it's going to stay less than or equal to k, k is probably not the length of it. So if array like index I is less than some value for all I from 2 to k, small is going to be printed on each iteration of the for loop. Since there are k minus 1 iterations, the maximum number of times that the small can be printed is k minus 1. So that's going to be c, because k is the whole entire length. Remember, the index is minus 1 of the length because it starts at 0. So small can only be printed k minus 1 times. Alright. Number 6. What will be the output of the following code segment assuming it's the same class as do something method? Integer, okay, you're starting an array. It has do something method, printing array 3. So let's change by do something. So this is one where you're gonna have to write it out. So pretty much it's C, because it pretty much lists all the numbers and then it replaces it with 0. Well, the 2 and the 4 are what gets removed because of this for loop, right? Because of 1 and 3. Remember how you're starting at 0, 1, and then you have 0, 1, 2, 3. Remember the index is here. So 2 and 4 are the ones that are being removed, and 1 and 3 are the ones that are staying, because 2 and 4 are going to be switched around. So do something is going to leave you with an array that's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's why you'd be left with C. Alright, consider writing a program that reads the lines of any text file to sequential list of lines, which the following is a good reason to implement the list with an array list of string objects rather than an array of string objects. So for number 7, so the get and set methods in array lists are more convenient than notation. A is wrong. B is also wrong. If any particular text file is unexpectedly long, then also unexpected. This is right. 7 is D. C is wrong and E is wrong. So if any particular text file is unexpectedly long, the array list will automatically be resized. The array, by contrast, may go out of bounds. So that's one of the pros of using an array list that we mentioned in the slides. So next. Consider writing a program that produces the statistics for a long list of numerical data. The following is the best reason to implement each list with an array of int or double rather than an array list of integer or double objects. So an array of primitive number types is more efficient to manipulate than an array list of wrapper objects that contain numbers. And that's actually correct. So A is correct in this. So in order for numerical elements to be added to an array list, each element has to be wrapped in like a wrapper class before it can be added to the list. So to retrieve a numerical value from the array list, the element has to be unboxed and then later has to be unboxed. So those are like efficiency costs in the code. So when you just use a primitive number types like as an array, you pretty much kind of skip over that. Yeah, so it's pretty much just like the efficiency of this. You don't want to unbox it. You don't want to box it and then unbox it again. You just want to do it once. So that's 8. Alright, so we're gonna have to maybe pause the video right here, get a good look at this code. We'll need this later. Alright, so for question 9. Client method has this declaration followed by code to initialize the list. So you create a new array list here, address list, new address. There's a code segment to generate a list of names only for address. Oh, so you're using a for each loop here. So the answer to this is D. Remember how we had the for each loop? You just have to print the this variable. You don't have to do any indexes or any array lists. You just have to print the variable out to get what you want. So that's why the answer is D. And since it's probably private, you have to use a get name. You have to use a getter. But alright, which of the following code segments is to print out a list of addresses? So once again, you're using a for each loop. So we're gonna see which one works best out of these. This one, correct replacement form. Now this is not a correct replacement because remember you just have to print ADDR. You don't have to print any of these arrays. 2 works because remember ADR just got get name, get city, get street. That's perfect. You just use ADDR. You can't just do number 3 because you want to print a whole list of addresses. So that's not going to work. You also need your getters for each one. So the answer to 10 is B, 2 only. Alright, a client method has this declaration. So you're creating a new array list student, all students equals a new student, num studs. So no, num studs is just a constant that they recreated for us. Here's a code segment to generate a list of student names only. You may assume that all students has been initialized. So for student 2, so you also use another for each loop. These for loops are very important to know how to use. Alright, which is the correct replacement for? Alright, so you want to replace this with some code. So for 11, so this first one, all students that get name, that's wrong because that's just the wrong variable. You have to use the student variable, not all students, so that's wrong. B is also wrong because you want to print. Shoot. You only want the student names, so that's also not going to work out for you. For 11, the answer is going to be C because you're using these. D you can automatically, D and A you can take out because it uses all students. You can also take out E because you don't need the index. So you're left with B and C. And to get the name, you have to go through the address. So that's why. So the get address kind of accesses the whole entire class, which then allows you to get your get name. So that's why you can't just go from B, you have to go from C, you have to go around. So yeah, that's 11. Alright, 12. Here's a method that locates the student with the highest ID number. Alright, precondition, array, student array, it's initialized, return student. Alright, so we're just going to see which one here works best. So this first one right here doesn't work. 2 does work, and then 3 also works, I believe. Yeah, it also works. So the reason is so segment 2, it's storing like a reference to the student, so each time it gets a higher number, it's gonna replace what that segment was highest so far. For 3, it does it by storing the array index. So, but for the reason that quoting 1 didn't work is because it returns the first student that it gets that it's the max. It doesn't wait till the end of the array. So you can have like, so you can get a number that's greater than the number before, and it's just gonna print that number. But it don't check if there's a number after that that's greater than the one that came before. It'll just see the first max and it'll just print that, which is wrong. That's why only 2 and 3, because this one just sets high so far, which may later be changed. This just creates a whole new array. Pause it right here of this code for later reference. You have your privates, important. Alright, 13. So, which of the following replaces more code? Alright. So, let's look back at this one. This more code right here, you're using a for loop. Okay, so we're gonna have to be using our indexes. Alright, so wait. Yeah. Alright. So for 13, each I that we had in the for loop hits the ticket list like array, I to the index. So that shows like a new ticket object that must be constructed using the ticket constructor. Therefore, you can see that C, D, and E won't be working. Choice A, these already exist, so they're not going to work. So then you're pretty much left with B, and B is the answer. Because, well, B creates the new ones that aren't already made. You can't be getting, get seat, get price, that's already used. That's already used. This creates it correctly in the row, the seat, the price. That's why this one's right. Alright, for 14, which represents the code to calculate amount. Alright, so for ticket T, so this is using a for each loop. So which one works? The answer would be C to this one. So we're using a for loop over here, and the total, we have a total variable, it's just plus equal. You have to get the price, which is why A would be wrong, which is why B would be wrong. It's just T, because remember you're using just that variable, so it'd be T dot get price, because it goes automatically to the ArrayList, you don't have to do the ArrayList again. This is just wrong because where they get that T from. So the answer to this, number 14, is C. Alright, next 15. Suppose it is necessary to keep a list of all ticket transactions, assuming that there are num sales transactions. A suitable declaration would be. So for 15, so you need a array type transaction to be doing this. So C and D can just be taken off because they're ticket unique transaction. Thing with E, we have on the, well, let's look at B first. For B and D, they're on the complete wrong side, a list of sales, so that's just not right. 15, choice E puts the identifier list of sales in the wrong place. Yeah, it shouldn't be there. So you're kind of left with A. A makes it correctly. Remember, if we look back in the slides, that's how you set it. The class, the array, the name you want it, new because it's an object, but they all have new. Transaction, the same name, and then num sales. That's just the type. So, alright. 16. The following code's fragment is intended to apply the smallest value array. Alright, so int min is equal to array 0 into I. Okay. So the code is incorrect for 7, 12, and 10, which the following modifications should be made. Alright, so for 16, let's look at number 1. We're changing the lie, so we're going to put int I equals 2, int I equals 0. Nah, that's not going to cut it. It's changing it. That's not enough. There's more than that. You want to change the whole body of the while loop. Yes, that's what you want to do, because you want to start from 1. 2 is correct. So yeah, 3, change the test for the while loop as follows. Next. Alright, so 16 is 2. Alright, so notice that either V index or W index is incorrect at the end of the loop. So return matches below. So parameter V in ArrayLists. V. So assuming that the method has not been excited, which assertion is true at the end of every execution of the while loop. So 17 is going to be A, because notice that V index or W index is incremented at the end of the loop. This means that when the loop is excited, the current values of V index and W index have not been compared. So if there's no common value in the arrays, the exciting condition for the while loop will be at the end of none of the arrays. So that's why A would be right. Number 18. Public class book, private string title, private string author, private boolean. So it's all boolean, no boolean, all private. One boolean variable. So for 18, A is not going to work because the book list array does change. Each book in the book list array will have its checkout status changed as intended. That is true. Null point, that's not true. A runtime, there's nothing wrong with the code, it will run. There's just no logic error. So the answer to 18 is B. Which of the following is a correct replacement for declare array bingo card? So you just want to declare a new bingo card array. So that's what we want the name to be. So we're going to be using players as a name. So bingo card, the array players equals new bingo card, and the number of players. That's what it gives us here. The class is bingo card. It's the class name or the type that it is, and then so that's right. So number 20. Assume that the player has been declared as an array bingo card, which the following is correct. So these different placements. So over here you have a for each loop, another for each loop, and then you have a for loop. So right off the bat, you can see that the answer, both 1 and 2 are not going to work in how they use this for each loop. Number 3, however, on the other hand, does set it equally correct. Player's I, the index I is equal to a new bingo card. What's wrong with this is that you've player's card, that's not what it is. The thing with I is that's also not how you do it. So you can't use a for each loop to like replace elements in an array. That's just what we wrote down in the slides before. So 1 and 2 are automatically just 1. So alright, next, 21. Which declaration will cause an error? List string, string list, new array list. Alright, so for 21, the answer is B. The type parameter in a generic array list must be class type, not primitive. So you would have only 2 would work. As you remember, you have inside, into list, new array list. So this one doesn't work right. This doesn't work right. So you just have 2. You can only have a primitive type inside. That's just how it would be with array lists. Alright, considering the declarations. So you have another array list over here. So which statement will cause an error? So looking at what will cause an error in this code, looking for the flaw. So if we add this right here, choice E, all the elements added to the lists are going to have to be a string. However, over here we have an int. So each one becomes a string eventually. Even in this one, this becomes a string. These are all strings, 2 string. This also becomes a string. Except for E. E never becomes a string. That's why E. Remember how we need to keep the same inside over here. So that's why it will just not work. 23. The list being an array list integer containing these elements. So we have an array list with 2, 5, 7, 6, and 0 and 1. Which the following statements would not cause an error to occur. Assume that each statement applies to the given list independent of other statements. So the choice B is going to cause a compile time error. That's just 3, and at 4 you don't have that. The only right answer in this is C. Choice C just adjusts the size of the list to 7 and adds the integer 9 to the last slot. So the last slot 6, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're going to add that. So that's why 23 would be C. Just adding 6 and 9. When you end up 5, you're going to add 6 and the numbers will be 9. You can't add 3, there's a point there, not a comma. Get 6, we don't have 6, it stops at 5. We don't have a 6, stops at 5, and you can't set 6 to 8. You're gonna have to add it and then set it from there. So next, I'll refer to the method insert below. Public void insert given an array list. Index is 0 while it's less than 0, index plus plus list add index element. So assuming that the type of element is compatible with the objects in the list, which is a true statement about the insert method. So with this insert method, alright, it doesn't work intended. It doesn't fail always, but it doesn't always work, so B and C are off. It fails if element is greater than the first item in the list and works null. No, it works too there. It fails if element is smaller than the last item in the list and works. That is true. If the item is smaller than the last element, then it's not going to work. So the answer to 24 is D. So if the element is greater than or equal to the last one in the list, that can be just a little test to show how just skip over it and it wouldn't really work. So 25. Consider the following code segment applied to the list and array list of integer values. Into len, we're using new variable is equal to the size of the list. Remember how in array list we use size, not length. I is equal to 0, I is less than length. I is less than the len, which is the size. List.add. If list is initially 618, what will be the following execution of the segment? So for 25, the answer to 25 would be A. Just goes through it. Pause the video and look at this code. Alright, 26. Here's the get total method from the first class. Double totals with a 0. We're gonna be adding code inside. So we want to return the total amount. So each one of these uses a for loop. So where I'm going with this, we're gonna have the total variable, and it's gonna be plus equal. We have to get we're gonna have to get the value. So out of all of these, E is correct because you have the variable just plus equals C dot get value. Very simple as that. This doesn't work because use coins. It has to be C. You don't need this. These are all extra steps. E's is like the straightforward one. 26. You just have to use the variable plus equal. Just get the value of C, and then you're done. Alright, for 27. Two coins are said to match each other if they're the same name or same value. You may assume that coins of the same name have the same value and coins of the same value have the same name, so vice versa. A Boolean method F of find is added to the first class. So you want us to find if the coin matches the other coin, false if it doesn't match. So we're going to have a for each loop, and if it doesn't work, then it's going to return false. So we want to make a for each loop that makes it return true. So with 27, one works because if C dot equals a coin, you can use dot equals in an array and it returns true. You can get the name, and if it equals to the name of that, you return true. If C dot get value equals a coin dot get value, that would return true. The problem with that in 27 is because dot equals only works for objects only. So since get value returns a double, the quantities C dot get value and a coin dot get value have to use a double equal sign, not dot equals. So that's why it wouldn't work. All the for each loops are made correctly. There's nothing wrong with the arrays. Just that you need double equal sign for this because it's double value, or so these return a string objects. So therefore it's just 1 and 2. Alright, 28. Which of the following initializes an 8x10 matrix and integer values are perfect squares? Remember that A is the row, columns is 10. So for 28, this one is right, just integer. You're only using integer numbers. Mat, new int, that's perfect. Using new int, mat, equals new intent. So for R, so it's pretty much just setting all the rows 0 using a nested for loop, all the columns 0, and it's just mat RC is equal to 0 times 0, so it's all just 0. The 0 is a perfect square, okay. With this, it's then 28. Alright, so the reason that segment 3 doesn't work is because R is undefined right here. You don't have, R has to be before C, so that's just not going to work. R being the rows and C being the columns. So you can't have the columns before the rows, that's just not how the 2D array works. It's always the rows before the columns in the nested for loop, so the for loop would just run wrong. Alright, 29. Consider a class that has a primitive instance variable, private instance variable. Alright, the class is the following method: alter, public void alter, and C. We're using another for loop, a nested for loop, so this is a 2D array, double bracket. It's a 3x4 matrix. So we're going to see what alter 1 does. So alter, the integer is C, so we're going to set C equal to 1. So I starts at 0, it's less than the length, so this is just counting the rows. So the column is going to be C plus 1. So the column automatically starts at J is equal to 2. That's interesting. And later, mat I, you have the same amount of row as J minus 1. So that's going to be equal to 1. So instead of starting at 0, it starts at 1 now. So that's what alter 1 is going to change. What the method alter with num1 is going to change. So you would have to, it would pretty much delete 1, 5, 6. It would push over the column by 1. That's what it would do. But it would still keep the right amount. It would just push it over, pretty much. So you would have, A would be right in this instance because it just repeats it. It just deletes pretty much this whole 3, 4, 5, whatever going on here. Because you kind of skip over it, you start at 1 instead of 0. So column 1 is what's not going to be there. It's supposed to be getting doubled. So that's why A is going to be right. So it pretty much just shifts it over. That's what happens. So the following method that will alter the matrix mat. So in num calls was mat about length, right, the call. Alright. So let's see what mat 2. Alright, we have mat a row 2. So for call, so a row is set equal to 2 in this. So that means that we're starting at row 2. So go to a row. So then 30 is also A. What it does is that it sets this whole entire last row 2. See, you see how we put row equals to 2? So when you run this through, this third row is all going to be equal to 2. Like row 3, column 1, row 3, column 2, row 3, column 3, and row 3, column 4. Well, starting at actually 0, 1, 2. Sorry, I should have said that better. Remember how we use the index, so it'll be 0, 1, 2. So row 2, remember how we set row equal to 2? Call is just, it skips over, it's a for loop, is going to be equal to 2. So this whole entire third row, or otherwise row 2, it starts at 0, is equal to 2, so that's why A would be correct. Alright, assume that a square matrix mat is defined by, alright, It's the following code segment do. Method. Example. Alright. So for 31. Hand execute this. So you're gonna need to use your hand here for this one. It's a 2x2 matrix. So I goes from 0 to 0 and J goes from 0 to 0. So the only interchanging swap in mat from row 0, column 0, and it's gonna be mat row 1, column 1. So the choice is gonna be B. So it's like a diagonal method. Alright, so for 32, so we have this whole double array going on. Alright, which of the following does not work as intended? Which of the following change will correct the problem? Alright, so the method doesn't really work. So what we pretty much want this code to do is to move it over 1 and put 0, 0. Okay, so you want to pretty much remove 6, 5, 7, move it all over, and set this last column all the way to 0. So let's see. So if you want to change line 10 to equal to C, that would make sense, because if C is then 0, then that would work. It would be C plus 1, so you start at 0, 1, and this would all be removed, and this would all be 0. So that would make sense. 1 would work. 32. 2 would also work. Change 10 and 11. So pretty much the same thing as before. And mat ij minus 1. It's pretty much just the opposite of this. Now it's just minus 1 over here. That would work. We did this code probably like a few questions ago, so this should be pretty familiar. This wouldn't work. You need to have it C plus 1 in order to do the second part of the code. So 3 wouldn't work. So the answer would be D to 32. Oh shoot. This question refers to the following method. What's that is there? Which the following conditions on a matrix mat with the type of relation code set. Guarantee that is there mat. Alright. So the answer to this is all elements in the column 2 are $sign. Yeah, you want that to get that $sign. The element row 2, no, that's not gonna work, and that's not gonna work. Wait. Yeah, it's only 3 is gonna work in this instance. So it's B. 34. The method change name negs below should replace every occurrence of a negative. So which of the following is a good replacement for that code? So here they all use for loops. This one uses a for each loop. So segment rows transversal. Alright, so segment 1 is just good old fashioned transversal. It's gonna work. Segment column. So 2 is also gonna work. It starts with the column go first, but it works. But alright, remember with the for each loops, remember how I said that they are not allowed to change, they can only transverse it. So that's why 3 wouldn't work in this case, only 1 and 2. So that would leave us with D. 34 is D. 35. Alright. 2-dimensional array with double rainfall will be used to represent daily rainfall for a given year. In this scheme, rainfall month and day, so month being a row and day being the column, represents the amount of rain on the given day and month. Alright, so amount of rain on January 15th, first month of January, and December 25th. Alright, and Christmas. And the array can be declared as follows. Alright, that's correct. Which the following is the correct replacement for the code set post condition of the method is satisfied. So the post condition is rainfall is initialized with values representing amounts of rain on all valid days. Invalid days are initialized to 0, 0. February 29th is not a valid day. Okay, some of it appears here. So for 35, since there is a 365 day valid in this year, not 366, the divisor in calculating the average must be 365 and not 366. So, yeah, that doesn't really work too well. So you can automatically eliminate 1. Also, even though you put in segments 2 and 3, they included rainfall in the total, they're already put into 0, 0.0. You just want to return the average. Valid days are initialized to 0, 0. So they don't really affect the total. That's why 2 and 3 would work. It's E. So pretty much you're just adding, you're doing the whole for loop, you're transversing the for loops. This works. All these for loops works. Except this one, you just divide by the wrong number. These you divide by the correct number and it does the for loop correctly, so that's why 2 and 3 work. Alright, 36. It's based on the point class below. Alright. So precondition, point mat is initialized to point objects. Every point, postcondition, every point with at least one negative coordinate has been changed to have both coordinates equal to 0. So it changes negatives to 0. Remember that. So what here would let us do that? So alright, so it's the same idea how a few questions ago, or was the last question, how a for each loop isn't allowed to alter. However, the one thing is if it has a mutator method, then it's allowed. This is mutator method right there. Therefore, it is allowed to change it. So 1, 2, and 3 all work. The answer is E to this. Let me check if it's the same thing. No, it wasn't the last question. It was a few questions ago. But yeah, this one just only adds it up. It doesn't change the array at all. But this one's asking to change the array, and it can. Though remember the for each loop can only transverse, but it can change if it pairs up with the mutator method, which it did right here. And that's why all 3 of them work. Alright, last question, guys. Simple tic-tac-toe is a 3x3 array filled with X and O's. Alright. So precondition square board RC is empty. Symbol placed in that square. Alright. So for each one, you want to add lines, right? Which E does correctly. You want to add the symbol in each square by using calls, because it goes through each single column, going up and down, and then adds one in. Because remember, we have this first for loop of the rows, which goes across, and the calls just kind of add them in as they go. You also want a closing boundary line. So the correct answer is E. That's the one that has all. So 37 is E. And that's the end of it. Alright guys. Thanks for watching, and that's Java's arrays and array lists. I hope you guys understand. If you have any questions, please let me know. And that's pretty much the end of it. I'm gonna go back to the summary. So hopefully you guys know how to use these arrays and two-dimensional arrays and array lists. For loops can be used to transverse and manipulate, as well as index. And it's pretty much a tedious topic, not too hard to understand. And that's the end, guys. Alright, see you later.